Okay, these are the multiple choice questions with a calculator, and I'm starting with number 78. So you were given this function, and it says it crosses the x-axis somewhere in the interval between 0 and 1. Okay, so you're going to go to your calculator, and you're going to put it into y equals, and you're from 0 to 1, you're going to see a picture that looks something like this. Okay, and you need to find where it crosses the x-axis. So you're going to set your window from 0 to 1, and then you're going to do second calc, choose the one that says 0, and you're looking for this point. And you should get that that point is 0.6061. So the question is, what is the slope at that point? Okay, so the slope is just the derivative, so you just need y prime. And the derivative of e to the something is e to that something times the derivative of the something. And the derivative of 2 is just 0, so we don't need that. So you want to know what happens when x is 0.6061. The calculator will do all the work. The only thing is that we don't have anything for secant in the calculator, so you're going to have to change it to this. E to the tan of 0.6061. So that's going to be in parentheses. And then you're going to have 1 over, secant is the same thing as cosine. So cosine of 0.6061 all squared, and then that also is going to need parentheses. Okay, so you're just going to go into your calculator, and you're looking for the thing that says n deriv, right? So you're just looking for the derivative of this. So actually, you really have two choices now that I just realized it. Either you can just put this piece in your calculator and solve, and when you do, you should get 2.9608, or you actually could have saved yourself a whole bunch of time here by just going to the n deriv in your calculator, putting this in, then saying comma 0.6061. I'm sorry, you're going to go into n deriv, then you're going to put in this, the function, then comma x, then comma the 0.6061, and you'll also get 2.9608. That would save a lot more time. Of course, I did it the longer way. In any case, the answer was D for that. Okay, for number 79, you're being told to find the average velocity from 0 to 8. So for the average velocity, remember, you're always going to want to use the original function, and if the question had asked for average acceleration, then you're going to use the velocity. So here's your choices. Okay, so the first thing is that it's definitely not going to be E, because E is saying to just flat out use the velocity, and we don't use the velocity, so to get rid of E. Okay, then for D, it has a 1/2. 1/2 has absolutely nothing to do with this, get rid of it. For A, it's saying to substitute values into the acceleration, can't be that. Okay, so now you have between B and C. So this is B. And this is C. Okay, so now we have one little problem here, which is both of these are average value setups, and this is asking for average velocity. But since they both look alike and one has absolute value and one doesn't, we're treating it as an average value. Well, you're only going to use absolute value signs when you're looking for distance. This is absolutely not asking for distance. So the answer is B, which personally I don't think is the greatest answer, but it's the best of the 5 choices. And that's what College Board said is the answer, so going with that. So that one was B. Okay, this is number 81, and you're being told that water is being pumped at a rate of R of T, and that you already started with 800 gallons of water, and then how much more water did you get after 20 minutes? So we're looking for an integral from 0 to 20 of R of T dt. So that will give us after 20 minutes, but remember you started with 800 gallons. So you're just going to put this into your calculator, and of course R of T is right here. And you're going to get an answer, which is 420.1429, but then you still have to add that 800. So the total will be 1220.1429, and that answer is D. Please do not take my word for this, and check it on your calculator so you get used to doing these on your calculator. Okay, this is number 84, and you're given an interval, and you're given the derivative, and you're being asked about concavity. Okay, so concavity is the second derivative. So the derivative of e to the something is e to the something times the derivative of the something, and then the derivative of negative 2 is just 0. Okay, so we're going to set this equal to 0. Obviously we cannot do that by hand, so we're going to do that on the calculator, and you're going to set your window from negative 1.5 to positive 1.5, and you should get 3 answers, that x equals negative 1, x equals 0, and x equals 1. Those are all in your interval. Okay, so we're going to make a wiggle graph for the second derivative, and what you want to do is you want to test values into the second derivative, which is right here, and see if it's positive or negative. If it's positive, it's concave up. If it's negative, it's concave down. Now the thing is that you already have this function in your calculator because you had to graph it, so there's no extra work involved here. It's already in there under your y equals. Just go to the table and start putting values in. And when you do, you should get these signs: negative, positive, negative, positive. So you're looking for when is it concave down, and the function is concave down when the second derivative is less than 0. So that's going to be here, which is from negative 1.5 to negative 1. I'm not saying from negative infinity because we were given this interval right here. Okay, forget this because it's concave up. Then it's concave down again from 0 to 1, and forget this because that's concave up. So the answer is choice D. Okay, number 86. So you're being told that the first derivative is greater than 0. If the first derivative is greater than 0, then f has to be increasing. So that's the first thing. So you're going to look at all 5 of your choices, look at your y values, and see if it's increasing. Okay, A is increasing, B is increasing, C is increasing, D is not increasing, and E is increasing. So, I mean, that was kind of easy, but you got rid of 1 if you had to at least guess now. Okay, now the area from 4 to 7 is going to equal 0. Now there's only one way that a function is going to equal 0. I mean, the area is going to equal 0, and that's if it was the integral of like from 1 to 1. But another way that also would be equal to 0 is if the piece below the x-axis is equal to the region above the y-axis, and they cancel each out because one's positive and one's negative. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at all of these and see where we can somehow do that. So for example, let's look at choice E. So if you look at choice E, all of the y values are positive. That means the region is always going to be located above the x-axis. If it's always located above the x-axis, then how are you ever going to get a piece below the x-axis to cancel it out? You can't, so E can't be the answer. Okay, and that same thought process, if you look at choice A, all the y values are negative. So the entire area is below the x-axis, which means you're never going to have a positive part to cancel it out. So therefore, A can't be the answer. Okay, sorry about that. That was my fresh direct delivery at the door. Okay, so anyhow, we're back to choices B and C. So for me, I thought the easiest way to deal with this was to graph it. And so for B, you're going to have a point here, here, and here. So your picture is going to look something like this. And you can see that you have an area above and below. And then if I looked at choice C, I have this, this, and this. And it's going to look like this. And so when you compare these, you can see that there's no way that for C that those two sizes are going to cancel out. And for B, yes, you're just estimating, but clearly it looks like a better choice than C. And actually B was the answer for 86. Okay, so this is number 88, and this one's kind of tricky, and the trick is to draw it like this. Okay, so this lamppost is 15 feet, this guy is 6 feet. Now, it's saying that he's walking away from the base of the street light. So this is the base of the street light. So from here to here, he walked away. So you can call that any variable. I'm just going to call it x. He walked away at a rate of 4 feet per second. So dx over dt equals 4. Okay, so then you're supposed to be finding the guy's shadow. So the shadow is this piece right here in front of the guy. So let's say we call that y, but you can call that whatever letter you want. So the question is to find the rate at which y is changing, so we're trying to find dy over dt. This is clearly a related rates problem, and you're going to have to go way back to algebra and think about your ratios. You know, like if the ratios of deer to bears is 2 to 1, set up that ratio, it's like that whole kind of thing. So what you have to do is you have to say, okay, the height of the lamppost, 15, over this line here, which is x plus y, has to be equal to the height of the guy, 6, over his piece, which is y. Okay, so that's the whole setup, and once you do that, then it's pretty easy. So we're going to cross multiply, and you're going to get 15y equals 6 times x plus y. Distribute those parentheses. Subtract 6y from both sides. You could simplify by dividing each side by 3. Okay, so this is actually your function. Now, don't forget you have to take the derivative of that. So the derivative of 3y is going to be 3 dy dt equals 2 dx dt. Okay, so 3 is 3, dy dt is what we're looking for, 2 is 2, and dx dt is 4. So you're going to get 3 dy dt equals 8. Divide both sides by 3. And you get 8 over 3, and that was choice B. Okay, for 89, this is the kind that I was talking about that is part of the BC. I mean, I'll go over how you would set it up, and then you'll see you'll get stuck. So you're told that the acceleration, given the acceleration, you have to find the velocity. So you're going to have to do the antiderivative of the acceleration to get back to the velocity, and then you know that for the velocity, when t is 0, the velocity is 5, and you would put that in as the initial condition to solve for c. The problem is that you have no way of finding the antiderivative of that. Use substitution won't work, and you can't use your calculator because you don't have any limits here and here. So this is actually done by something called integration by parts, which is part of the BC. So as soon as you see, like, you don't see anything quickly to do how to do this, just move on, because I warned you that they'll give you a problem like that. Okay, so you're probably noticing that the questions are getting harder and harder, and yes, the last few questions start getting really difficult, and this one is no exception. Either you're going to get it right away, or you're just going to say, I just can't, and you skip it, but don't waste time. Okay, so the problem is you have this integral in terms of x, and they want you to match it to an integral in terms of t. And for the first time ever, you're going to learn how to do u substitution with an integral. So the secret to this is to say, let t equal 2x. If that's true, then dt will equal 2 dx. And then if you divide both sides by 2, you're going to get 1/2 dt equals dx. Okay, what is this going to do for me? It means that I can take out my dx and I can change it to 1/2 dt. And then I'm left with f of 2x, but 2x is t, so I'm looking for an f of t. This needs to equal 10, and so this is starting to look very much like the multiple choices. But here's the little trick, because even if you get this far, your limits are going to end up being a problem. But let me do the easier part first. So none of the choices have a 1/2 in it. So if you multiply both sides by 2, you're going to get this. And of course, if you look at choice D, it matches that exactly with the limits from 6 to 12. But here's where it's kind of a little ridiculous. So they're doing this on purpose to trick you. These were your limits. Those were your x values from 6 to 12. But you just used a substitution to say that t is twice the amount of x. So you actually have to change this to 12 and 24. And that was choice B. Okay, for number 91, you're given f prime of x, and you just have to answer what's going to be true and what's not going to be true. And there's lots of different ways you can do this, but here's how I looked at it. From x equals -2 to 0, the derivative was decreasing. So f prime was decreasing. If f prime is decreasing, then f double prime is going to have to be less than 0, and f double prime is going to be concave down. Okay. Then if you look from 0 to 3, f prime was increasing. If f prime is increasing, then f double prime has to be greater than 0. I just want to change this. It's not f prime is concave down, then f is concave down. Okay, and so if f double prime is greater than 0, then f is concave up. Okay, then I looked in the interval from 3 to 5, and I saw that f prime is increasing, so the same thing is happening. F double prime is greater than 0, and f is concave up. And finally, from 5 to 6, f prime is decreasing, therefore f double prime is less than 0, and f is concave down. Okay, so you have all these crazy choices, A, B, C, D, E. Now, here's the big problem. You have no idea what's happening in between these x values. So, for example, they didn't give you anything for when x equals 1. But for all you know, at x equals 1, it could be a negative number. So you can't assume anything. So the first thing that we could definitely take out is A, because A says it's always concave up, and we have certainly shown here that sometimes it's concave down, so take out A as a choice. Okay, B says there has to be at least 2 points of inflection. Okay, that is true, because if you started off concave down, and then you went concave up, and then you went concave down again, there has to be at least 2 points of inflection. So B we'll put in there. That's a possibility. Okay, C says that f is increasing, so we have no idea what's happening with f. We can't just make, like, anything that doesn't say, like, at least or anything like that, you have to take out as a choice, because you don't know if f is always just increasing, so take out C. There's just too many points missing. And D says f has no critical points, That can't be true, because if you have a change in concavity, that's going to happen, like either before or after some sort of critical point. So take out D. Okay, and then E says there's at least 2 relative extrema. Well, you have no idea about that. You know that there's a concavity changing, but a concavity can be changing without maxes and mins, for example, if the picture looks like this. Okay, so if it looks like that, then from here to here it's concave down, and then from here to here it's concave up. Yet there was no max or min. So therefore the only answer that would possibly make sense is choice B. Okay, so this is number 92, and as soon as you see cross sections perpendicular to the x-axis, you're thinking area of cross section dx. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is your interval. So you need to know, where do these two functions meet? Okay, so just set them equal to each other. So when is x squared equal to radical x? Square both sides, set it equal to 0, factor, and you'll get two answers, that x equals 0 and x equals 1. So that's your interval from 0 to 1. Now the area of the cross section are squares. So the formula for the area of a square is just the side squared. Okay, so you just need a side, and you have two functions, and they're actually nice enough to tell you that the one on top is radical x. So it's radical x minus x squared, well, squared. That's the area. So we're just going to take out this piece here and put in the area, which is radical x minus x squared, all squared. You're going to throw this into your calculator, and when you do, you're going to get, I believe it was A, which is 0.129. Choice A, and that's it. Multiple choice is done.